Oh,
You got it.
I'll grab it
Really.
in a minute.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. I'd like to call the February 2018 Committee on Accreditation meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Jose Luis Alvarado, Jomelyn Balatayo, Suzanne Borges, Deborah Erickson, Cheryl Forbes, Bob Freely,
Here.
Anna Moore, Gerard Morrison, Margot Pensabal, Iris Riggs, Kelly Scone, James Webb. We have quorum.
Excellent. Good. At this time, I'd like to introduce James Webb, who is our newest member. So I want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. James Webb. I am the induction director for the William S. Hart Union High School District in Santa Clarita, California. We currently have both a teacher induction program as well as an administrator induction program. This is my 5th year there. I actually have gone through the entire system as a participating teacher in BITSA, then I was a support provider, and now I'm the induction director. And I'm very excited to be part of the Committee on Accreditation, so thank you for the appointment, and I look forward to the work that we'll be doing here.
Welcome. Glad to have you. Sounds like you have a lot of experience to bring to the table, so thank you. As a reminder of recent changes, this meeting is no longer streamed live. So because the COA has a need to Zoom into our meetings, our constituents, institutional representatives, and team leads, and because the Commission's new video system does not allow for Zoom and webcasts at the same time, we are no longer webcasting live. We have, however, allowed any individual who would like to link to Zoom into the meeting while the meeting is underway to do so. So it is possible that we may have some individuals watching or listening via Zoom in real time. Because of this, we'll still need to use the microphone, so just press the button on it. You'll see the green light come on. That'll let you know that it's live. And if you do not do that, those listening on the Zoom will not be able to hear your comments. All right, item 2. First item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the February meeting? So moved by Committee Member Borges. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Erickson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So today's agenda is relatively light compared to what we usually have, so we have time to explore and to discuss. So take the time, feel free to ask questions, feel free to offer comments, so we don't want to feel as if we're rushed today. And if things go well, we may actually have an hour lunch. That's like luxury, go figure. All right, let's move on to item 3. That's the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. It would be appropriate for any committee member not in attendance at that meeting to abstain. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November 2017 meeting? So approved by Committee Member Alvarado. Is there a second? Oh, after we have a second. Right, we do a second first. Yeah. So is there a second? Second by Committee Member Balatayo. Right, comments, corrections.
Oh, okay. Sorry. In the minutes, Bob, it says that you're elected to represent K-12. Is that right?
No, it's actually post-secondary. Yeah, I caught that too. Yeah. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other? Any other corrections, comments? All right. So with that one correction noted, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 4. Item 4 are the co-chair and member reports. So I'd just like to mention that Anna and I had presented to the commission in December, which was my first time doing so. And I thought it went fairly well. Anna, your perspective is probably stronger having a background with it. What'd you feel?
I think the commission was very receptive of the report and, as always, really impressed by the work that everyone does and the decisions that we make with fidelity and the amount of discussion. I think that was really something that we imparted, was how seriously we take our jobs and how prepared you all come to the table, not just the COA, but the CTC, our team, the PSD, really doing such fabulous work, and what a wonderful team we are, and we feel so grateful to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was my first experience with it, but it seemed to go very smoothly. Cheryl, I don't know if your perspectives were any different, but...
I thought it went very well. Ida Rodriguez, who's our commissioner who happens to be sick today, that sits on this as our liaison, had some really nice words to say about the COA and how supportive she is of the work that we're doing and how important it is. And so I think they feel very comfortable with this current system and personnel around the table, and so it was very positive.
Great, thank you. And a big shout out to all the members here at the CTC for helping us with that. So it was great. Thank you. All right, any members have anything to report? Committee member Erickson.
I'd just like to report that on March 7th, the deans of the independent universities and colleges are meeting together with all of the deans of the School of Education from California State University systems. It's a week of political action. We'll all be up here, and the following 2 days after we have the segmental deans meeting, we'll be at the SPAN conference, which is a political action conference of the CCTE. So we'll be visiting with legislators and talking about issues in education that are important to all of us.
Great. That sounds exciting. Good. Good. Anyone else? Suzanne, you were nudging. Shall we lean over there? I'm just kind of curious. All right.
So we have a future educator. Yay. Since he or she already has a heartbeat, I think it's safe to say that, I'm expecting.
Oh, congratulations. Can anyone top that?
When are you due?
That's true. We almost needed that today. Great. Well, congratulations. That is definitely exciting. All right. Moving on to item 5 then. Item 5 is staff reports. Staff does have a few items it would like to present. I'll turn it over to Ms. Hickey.
We always have a long report, and I'm sorry, but we do have an hour until we have our first site visit report that's time certain. So we won't take an hour, but we do have a few things. There's been a lot that's been happening since we met in November. So first of all, Happy New Year. Hopefully 2018 is better than 2017. There were a few bumps in the road in 2017, but I wanted to first introduce a new member of our team, Michelle, and she moved over. I was looking down there. You moved over here. Michelle Bernardo. You all remember that Terry Ackerman retired, and so Michelle Bernardo is our newest analyst in our division, and will be working primarily on accreditation. So we're already starting her with the COA, with preconditions, with she'll be helping with the Common Standards review, quite a bit of everything. We're trying to slowly, I don't want her running from this building, so we are trying to kind of induct her gently into the process. But so today's her first COA meeting, and she's attended the commission meeting recently, so getting a good taste of this. And she was previously a registrar. Is that correct, Michelle? Yes. So she has a higher ed background and then went to work for Covered California for a while. And we all know what's happening there is a little uncertain. So, we're the beneficiaries of Michelle's expertise. So we're happy to have you. Welcome. I wanted to remind you all that you should have gotten something from us for Form 700s that are due every year for all of you. And so if you have them with you today, if you can give them to Michelle, that would be great. If you don't, we have until, I think, April 1st is the deadline, so you could bring them next time if you don't have them, or you can mail them in to us, but we need to get those. Technically, there's a penalty if you don't turn them in on time, but we'll try to make sure that you don't have a penalty. I wanted to talk a little bit about everything. So one of the big things that we are watching is that the governor put in his budget for next year's fiscal year, $100 million towards the teacher shortage. So it's divided into two pots. One is, I believe, a more general pot. I don't even really know what they're calling that. And the other is for $50 million in residencies for teacher preparation. So we're watching that. We don't have the final bill language as to what that's supposed to look like or what those grants will be, what the parameters around those. I know that our Office of Governmental Relations and Terry and a few others have been kind of advising on that as that moves forward. But we can't really give you a whole lot of details at this point in time, but we're watching that process. And my understanding is that the original proposal is primarily for special education, but that may change over time, maybe related to math and science. We don't know, so we'll watch that. But there's a lot of money involved, and it comes with, right now at least, the proposal is to come with 2 staff people for the commission to administer not only those grants, but also the other grants that we've been dealing with over the last few years, because we've had to absorb that into our current workload. So that's one really positive thing for us, is at least there's a personnel involved in that, because otherwise we'd have to take that on our backs. So that's good news, although, again, it's really broad and we don't have a lot of detail at this point in time. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? I know that Roxanne, is this your first COA meeting, you said? Roxanne Purdue has been with the commission for a very long time. How many years? Since 2001. Oh, that's the year I came too. So 2001. And, so the reason I'm introducing her is because in December we had a meeting to talk about RECA and the reading instruction competency assessment and the need to update, change, rethink about the way we assess reading preparation. And so it was December 20th, and we had almost 100 people somehow participate either electronically or in person. So right before Christmas, so that you know that there's a lot of interest in that topic. There's a lot of work that needs to be done still. It was an agenda item before the commission after the December meeting, so that their last commission meeting. The commissioners talked about it, and they really want to study and think about it deeply and not make a quick judgment about what to do about it, but really consult with the field, consult with the reading experts, and really figure out what we need to do to move forward and what's the next step in terms of, do we have a standalone assessment? Do we have an embedded assessment within preparation programs? What is the right thing to do in this day and age? And so, Roxanne, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. You're welcome to come to the table and add to that if you'd like. I'm putting her on the spot, and I'm sorry. Yeah, you'd have to use the mic. Okay, great. So watch that topic. That'll be moving forward. Again, not a lot of conclusions yet, but definitely interest in that topic. I'm going to ask Lynette, since you're at Mike, to talk about PPS and kind of where we are with the people personnel. And Karen's back there too. She's her cohort in crime on this one. On people personnel services.
Well, Karen Sacramento and I have been working with the PPS groups, and we've begun the process of revision of the standards. They haven't been revised since 98 or it says 2001, but it was minimally revised at that point. So we've had our second group meeting. We had that in January. We have another one in March and another one in May, and they're busily working on revisions, and each group separately at this point, and we have some gathered together, but we're moving forward. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It gets confusing at points. Karen and I look at each other,
right?
But it's good work, and they're doing really, really well with it, and a lot of discussion.
So that would be school social work, school psychology,
yes,
child welfare and attendance, and what am I missing?
School psychology, school counseling, school social work, and then child welfare and attendance, and all four are being looked at
right
at this point.
One of the things we're trying to encourage them to do is to, in the scheme of streamlining and strengthening, those are the standards that are probably there's like 32 standards for each of those areas. And so we're trying to get them to rethink it in the way that we have for admin and the way we have for teacher preparation, which is a set of expectations for the candidates and then program standards. And so they're thinking about it in that way, but they're also they're also very interested in aligning the national standards or the California KCREP standards with our new standards. So it's a layered work that Karen and Lynette are kind of spearheading. But yeah,
Right now we're working with them for, as you said, candidate competencies, TPE, like TPEs. Only we're struggling with what to call them because right now we're calling them PPEs, which doesn't.
PPS, PEs, yeah. It's a lot, so. What's that? Right. They're not teaching performance expectations, yeah, but they are PEs of some sort. Yeah. So that's exciting work because that is work that's long overdue that kept getting pushed as we kept revisiting teacher prep and kept revisiting admin prep to, we really need to focus on that. And we know a lot has changed in this world since 1998. So there's a lot that needs to happen there. So it's really exciting work. I wanted to ask Gay to talk about admin because that work never seems to be done.
I was hoping you'd say induction so I could sneak some teacher stuff in there too. Is that okay if I? The teacher induction world actually got together in Fresno in December for their first conference held by the general grassroots public population, and they had quite a good turnout across the state. It was 2 days, almost 3 days, with lots of good interaction, breakout sessions, speakers from across the United States. And it was so popular at the time, they already booked for next year. And a save the date flyer has gone out, and they did token appreciation to admin induction, and they're going to blow that out this year, and they're going to make it a dual kind of a meeting with both inductions, admin and teacher induction. And they've added a person on the guiding committee to include admin induction folks and do some presentations and things. So looking forward to that, and thank you to the 3 county offices in the Central Valley who sponsored that, which was very nice of them. And in the admin world, admin induction has pretty much been the child that we left behind this year because we're so busy with the prelim program. The California performance assessment is in its field test year, and I'm learning a lot. We did a pilot year last year to teach us what we were doing wrong. We think, we're going to ask this question, we're going to get this answer. We asked this question and got this answer. So we went back and redid everything. So it taught us a lot about how to better ask the questions to get what we were looking for. So this year we're in field test. There's many more institutions who are joining us in the field test. They each are doing 5 candidates. They have asked each of those candidates to take on all 3 cycles of the performance assessment, where last year they only did 1 for us. We needed the information to know if 3 was adequate or if 3 was asking too much in the lengths of our programs. Then we found out that admission to the admin programs occur all across the calendar. So we tried to figure out what would a year be, and we're running into some differences because of the budget that Cheryl mentioned earlier. There's currently a proposal to fund another year of research to make sure we have it right before it counts. And if that maintains and enters into the final budget and gets passed, we will have an implementation year in 1819, where every candidate will take the performance assessment but not be required to pass it for earning their credential. That would happen starting in the fall of 19 into 20. So we have been holding some workshops around the state to get people on board. You can't imagine the kind of turning the great big cruise ship this takes to get from what people are currently doing in their present program design into admitting and embedding and finding out what are the performance assessment pieces. So we held one in Madera in June, San Diego in November, and Santa Clarita at James Place just in January. We managed to get every single institution who has a preliminary program there, except for 2, and we got them on board with a Zoom meeting, and we did that face-to-face electronically. So they have all been through a workshop and all have talked about, we organized it around a 10,000, 5,000 and ground level view. So what does it look like at an institution? What does it look like to your program? What does it look like to your candidates? And it was a mixture between getting new information and then wrestling with that information for your own program. And we had a lot of good information, got a lot of good sharing, and we also tore down some silos. So they really decided, these people are not my competitors, they're my compadres. And they went away exchanging phone numbers and cards, and I can do this if you'll do that, kind of a thing. So that was very nice. And then they've now come back to us and said, okay, now that we are all trying it, can we get back together? So we're going to do 3 think tanks, implementation think tanks in September, October, across the state, where they will come and share best practices. So they're going to help us out. Even the people under the design committee who have known since the very, very beginning what the design has been, have struggled with some pieces that are foreign to their part of the program. So they're looking for other people who have that as their strength to help them out. So the design team is very much behind the endeavor for the think tanks. And then, as I said, in December, we will be doing that, the conferences as well. Anything else? I think that's it.
Yeah, please.
Quick clarifying question. Anybody else participate in this Cal APA workshops they put on? Yeah, it was really exciting stuff. I went to 2 of them. I got lucky. One of the few people, actually, and it was really kudos to you and your team. It's really deep, a lot of work, and I think your analogy of steering the ship is totally appropriate. Just 2 quick questions. You mentioned the 18, 19, 19, 20. Is it going to be 2 years of hold harmless participation, or still just 1, 18, 19, and then 19, 20 going into a requirement?
It will be 1 cycle. We're trying to avoid year because of so many admission calendar pieces. And even better news, we have knocking out the little tiny detailed pieces of people in the room on a PSA that's coming out within a week that will tell you all the dates. So for instance, if you come in the implementation year, there's a hard deadline date that says you have to have all 3 of those cycles turned in to be non-consequential. If you don't, you roll over into consequential, and then they pay for it and they have to pass it. So it's a pretty important date.
Yeah, and that was part of the conversation I had yesterday was what about those people who drop out of the program after 3 courses when they still have 3 courses more, and then they come back, maternity leaves, illness, what happens to those people? It's a lot of great questions out there. The other question I had, had been some rumors about the something happening this spring with regards to some Cal APA workshops, as opposed to the October dates. You were September, October. Is anything happening between now and then?
Because of the field testing and the need to get in assessors, markers, all of that kind of work that's being done in the spring, the implementation think tanks have been pushed to September, October. But there's plenty of action. Come on down and help us score and become a marker and a lead.
Great, thanks, Gay. And I did ask, and we'll do this at the end, but I did ask for Karen to have some conversation with you about induction and the transition this year. We'll do that in a minute. But William, can I ask you to talk about Ed Specialists? I don't know if many of you are following the Commission's struggles discussion about where to go with the Ed Specialist credentials, but they made some progress at the last meeting. So both William and Sarah, who's not here today. Is she here? Oh, there's Sarah. I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't see you, so otherwise I would have come on up. And Sarah can kind of share with you where they're going, because ultimately those programs will come to you eventually. But the Commission is still working out a lot of details. So
yeah, they are working out details, but I'm happy to report they did make some determination on the credential structure. So they endorsed the concept or structure of 5 preliminary credentials, and those are mild to moderate support needs, significant support needs, early childhood special ed, which will now go birth through kinder, deaf and hard of hearing, and visual impairments. All the teachers now going through programs will also have that common trunk of preparation, so that they are hopefully working together not only in their preparation programs, but once they get out into the school sites and have a better understanding of what the other, how they're working with their students. They also approved the teaching performance assessment for all teachers. So that will be coming up, and Sarah and I have been working on the teaching performance expectations for these different credential areas. We have draft ones ready for 4 of the 5, and we are meeting with the final group, the significant support needs group, next month with a panel of about 10 people, I think, yeah, to develop draft teaching performance expectations for significant support needs. So we will have all of that ready at the June commission meeting to present, and we've received feedback from the field on the draft teaching performance expectations, and there'll be a time for the field to give feedback for those draft significant support needs TPEs that are going to be developed next month. Let's see here. Oh, further discussion and recommendations are still going to happen in the areas of subject matter competency, clinical practice requirements, and specific credential authorizations that will be determined at future meetings, but at least we have the structure now that we know we're going to be working with, and we can move ahead with some of that regulatory work. And probably the biggest difference with these credentials, the mild to moderate support needs and significant support needs, is that they are not specific to disability categories. It's based on the needs of the student. So you won't necessarily be, at the district level, placing students in a classroom based on their disability. It'll be based on what their learning needs are. We kind of heard that from different state agencies, programs, all the different groups we've been meeting with for the past several years, that was really important to have it focus, no matter what the outcome, to have it really focus on the students' needs and not necessarily determining their education based on a disability category only. So that's pretty exciting, I think. And Sarah, did I miss anything? Okay. Yeah.
What were the 5 categories?
Sure. Mild to moderate support needs, significant support needs.
That's what.
Yeah.
And the common trunk of preparation for all of those teachers, or with general ed?
It's the general ed TPEs for all teachers will be the common trunk of preparation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Committee Member Morrison.
Actually, my question's about that as well, the common trunk. When I was reading that proposal out went to the commissioner report, I wasn't clear just how much of the credential work would be the common trunk. At what point do they branch off into the special ed work? And also, will somebody who's been through that common trunk, will they be kind of like dual credentials? Will the special ed teachers, because of the work they've done in the common trunk, will they be able to teach in regular ed classes as well?
So the common trunk is actually the gen ed TPEs. They are the common trunk. And the idea is that certainly a gen ed teacher could easily become a special ed teacher, and vice versa. A special ed teacher could also branch over, there'd be bridges to each credential. But the gen ed TPEs are the common trunk of preparation. There's also a common set of preparation for these ed specialist credentials, because all special education teachers do case management. They develop individualized education programs for students. So there's a common set of preparation for ed specialist teachers. So it branches off at that point. But all teachers across the state would have the gen ed, would be prepared in the general education TPEs.
Can I just follow up on that? The conversations I had with special ed teachers who I work with, they had concerns about whether then would they be told that they were credentialed to go into a general ed classroom, having completed this common trunk? Is it 40% of the time, 80%? And there were concerns about whether they would be expected to teach in general ed classrooms, whether their credential would cover that.
Right. So that actually hasn't been fleshed out yet. That would come within the authorization statements, right, that are attached to the credential. And so that's certainly, and then of course we still have the whole clinical practice piece to figure out. So how much of the clinical practice would be occurring in a general education setting when you are earning a special education credential. So I think all of that would play into it. And I see Catherine also has something to weigh in.
I just, you know, we live deep down into the forest of all this, and so sometimes our familiarity. One of the reasons why, or a key reason why the general ed TPEs are appropriate for that trunk is because a lot of work was done over the last few years to bring in essential TPEs appropriate to serving all kids in a classroom. So that includes a real ramping up of special education related teaching performance expectations. So although they get called the general ed trunk, and we might need to work on the nomenclature, that really truly they are TPEs that are appropriate for all educators in California.
Committee Member Alvarado.
So thank you. That sort of addresses the question I had, which is it's important to sort of shore up the special ed credential aspect in ensuring that they have those essential, good quality teaching practices, but at the same time not miss an opportunity to look at general ed credentials and seeing how they can be infused even more so with the skill sets to serve the diverse students who are in those general ed pub, especially with the prevalence of inclusion models. I'm just thinking about issues related to positive behavior intervention and supports and so on, and that as an example, that particular topic is foreign in general education conversations, and yet general ed teachers are expected to be part of that practice.
So I think if the commission staff had a time machine, okay, that it would have been wonderful to be able to do the multiple single subject and the special ed revisions to the standards concurrently. However, we really did pay attention, and stakeholders were really clear about just what you're talking about, and that in looking at the revision, initially it was about arming general ed teachers with more skills and abilities to serve all students. That's how this work kind of got started. And unfortunately, in hindsight, the multiple single subject work got done first. And I do think that we'll have to look at how we name things down the road so that it does denote the inclusiveness of all students in that preparation, that initial preparation that all teachers go through. That's down in the forest, and we're still kind of like, circling above the treetops right now. But, and I'm trying to use tree analogies. I don't know if it's helping, because it's a trunk. So,
thing you have to see, Sarah's tree, that's in the agenda item. She worked very hard on that, and I think redid it 100 times, right?
Well, we do have multiple versions of the tree, but I think really what speaks to your comment is, and William had a wonderful PowerPoint that really outlines the Gen Ed TPEs and how they really are addressing all students in the classroom, and it really speaks to inclusive classrooms. So the Gen Ed TPEs were really ramped up to serve all students. And so that was the basis of, and that's why then the special ed TPEs were revamped, is because the Gen Ed TPEs became so much more rich and robust to serve all students. So.
And that's to support UDL and MTSS Yeah, and that's across the board.
It's not easy, and Sarah and William have done a really good job of working with many, many stakeholders to try it, because there's not a uniform opinion about the direction that California should go. So trying to find a common ground in this has been really challenging. So any other questions about special ed? Great. Thank you, guys. I did want to just mention we have construction workers running around the building, and most of the time they're working in the evening. But what's happening is we're bringing the stairs up to Cal OSHA requirements. They're apparently very out of alignment with the law. We're also putting in a new conference room right next to this room. That's a smaller additional conference room. And then there's some various work happening throughout the building. So you will see construction and kind of a mess for a while. But by the time you get here next month, it should be done. I mean, they're ahead of schedule, and so it's good. Catherine.
In spite of this sign, should there be a need to evacuate, this is not actually an exit any longer.
That is scary. I have never.
Staff will assist you in finding other doors.
That's hilarious. I've never noticed that. So if I could take a few minutes to ask Karen to come to the table. So we have, as you know, when the commission makes changes to the standards, we always give about a 2-year window for programs to make the changes they need to make. There's time that they need to think about the changes. If you're in an IHE, there's all sorts of internal processes and, faculty senate and things that you need to go through. The induction world has really been grappling with some transformational changes we're asking them to make. And this is a year, I thought we should bring it right now to kind of have a conversation without any site visits in front of us, to talk about the extent of the changes. And Karen and Gay and Sarah have been out in the field a lot talking to the induction community about where the commission sees things going and what the new standards actually mean. And so I thought she could talk this morning about some of the challenges and some of the things that we're seeing and hearing. So there's, bringing the field up to speed, bringing our reviewers up to speed, bringing the COA up to speed, so everybody's on the same page and has the same expectations. But this year is a challenge because I think there's different levels of understanding out there. So Karen, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and hopefully we can have a good discussion without having to make any decisions about a particular program right in front of us. So,
all right. Good morning. So as Cheryl highlighted, there have been pretty seismic shifts in induction in California over the past year. For a long period of time, induction programs were primarily BITSA programs, so LEA-based programs, and they were driven by a formative assessment system. It may have been FACT, which was the state-developed system, or a locally developed or other system. But that was really the driver. So candidates and their support providers, which was the term we previously used, worked together on this program of formative assessment. So they created work-based documents and often had a portfolio or some kind of sample of work at the end of the 2-year period. And that is no longer the system that we're running. Through the governor's directive, the induction standards work group a number of years ago now, 3 years ago, designed new standards that were both strengthened and streamlined. And the guiding wisdom of that panel was what has worked really well over the last couple of decades in BITSA and in induction. And when all was said and done, it was that mentoring system. And the prior BITSA induction was very driven by mentoring, but the mentoring was very systematic. And typically all candidates went through a mentoring system that was lockstep. And in September, they did certain modules and continued on through the 2-year period. And the change in that mentoring now is that it's not lockstep, that it's very individualized under the new standards and very driven by an individual learning plan that's measured against the CSTPs. So that's kind of the transformational change that Cheryl referred to, moving away from that formative assessment system to a system that continues to formally assess, but does it in a completely individualized way. Last year, staff did a great deal of technical assistance. So went to a number of meetings across the state to help programs, teacher induction programs, as they transition. One of the changes within the changes is that special education induction is now under the exact same standards as general ed. So we have one set of teacher induction standards for both. And so really worked and continue to work with programs to figure out how to implement this. There were a number of very highly successful programs running under the current system. Highly successful by measures of the prior standard. So how do those programs move into the new standards? How do we kind of not throw out the baby with the bathwater as we move forward and work to really individualize? One of the main purposes of this was that candidates did not feel that what they were experiencing through induction was an authentic experience. You know, we heard, gosh, I did so much of this in teacher prep, or I just don't need this. This doesn't apply to me, or I really need something else and I need to do this. So balancing all of that, trying to balance better local initiatives and district initiatives within the induction program. So they're not doing something for their school site and something for induction when perhaps those things could overlap as individualized goals. So, and how do we do this and make it a very robust mentoring system? And what that means often now is that the mentor qualifications and selection and training process has really been more highly defined and ramped up. So again, as programs retrain mentors who may have been also mentors under, the prior system, big change in doing that. So I think in this first year of implementation, as site visits are just occurring, we will continue to see a range, and we will continue to work towards supporting programs that are truly based in a robust, authentic mentoring system. That's kind of my 3 to 5 minute introduction. I'd be glad just to have some time to discuss the new induction standards and take any questions you may have.
What we're seeing is that there are some that have been watching the conversation for a long time, and they're on board, and things are moving quickly, and you see that individualized, you see the shift in the program. But then there are other programs that either aren't as willing because they're very tied to the old system for whatever reasons, or they're not as secure in the individualized piece of it, and they feel like they need it. And so we are seeing a range as we're getting out there and talking to having site visits this year and talking to next year's cohort of site visits. We are seeing a range of comfort levels with the new standards, and really being able to truly see. And so I think there's a lot of onus on our site visit teams too to really push those questions and probe about how individualized and how well a program's meeting an individualized person's needs. So it's excuse me. So it's a challenge, I think, this year. Even though we've been out in the field, or they've been out in the field for a very long time talking about these new standards, actually seeing it work. I think you'll see a combination this year of, and really having to tease out what is a district requirement for a new teacher versus what is the program requirements for new teachers. I'm seeing that as being one of the challenges I'm seeing when I see these reports come through. But so I just wanted Karen to have a chance to talk to all of you and to kind of tell you about the state of induction right now and have you have any questions that you may have and talk about them here before.
Go ahead.
I have a lot of questions. I won't ask them all right now, but having worked with FACT, which I thought was so wonderful, still shout out to our FACT family out there. One of the things that was so wonderful about it was by completing the FACT activities, you knew that the candidate was demonstrating and applying, or you could make the assumption, the CSTPs throughout their practice. Now that that's not a requirement, what does that evidence of demonstration and application look like, and how is that documented? And I'll stop there.
So, I'm going to actually, we have leaders in the room, and that is a fantastic question. And I will just preface it by saying, in many ways, when we looked at these new induction standards and built them to be as deeply meaningful as they can be, and when the takeaway was that, well, that's a really ongoing trained and supported mentor relationship, it's a step of faith, right? Because it's based in a deeply guided relationship. So it's not based in filling out the forms that in many ways did give that frame. So again, that wasn't all negative. Practices, in terms of the Petra cycle and deep inquiry and best practices around formative assessment systems continues to be brought forward across the state. I'm seeing that, but not necessarily driven by writing and driven by filling out forms together. So I'm going to stop there, and I'll let James. We have another leader in the room, Connie Best, who runs an induction program. So Valerie's here. All right, didn't know that. All right, hey Valerie. All right, so my expert.
No, that's a very good question, and that was something that came up with our advisory board, as to how are we going to document certain teaching behaviors. And what we have found is we were a fact system before the induction standards were revised. We now use them as suggested tools. We are not in the business of, okay, you need to do this one, it's a class profile, but instead it goes back to what we do at the beginning as a triad meeting with the site administrator, the mentor, and the teacher to really look at what is the school's focus. If the school focuses on diminishing a gap with EL students, the mentor then is charged to guide on how to read CELT scores, how to look at behaviors of students with regard to the CSTPs, because I think William and Sarah made a good point. When you were looking at all students, that's what the CSTPs asks for. That's what then guides the mentor in their work, and then it also helps them choose their own professional learning. Because what I would say has been a fantastic revision is that the candidate, at least in our program, is fully charged in their own professional learning. They choose what they want to learn based on the goal that they have set for themselves, which then supports the goal of the school and of the district. So in our particular situation also with special education, I'm glad to see that they brought them together, because what was happening is that special ed teachers would say, why can't I do this? Because we had a separate set of induction. But now when we look at non-diploma track students, when we look at varying disabilities, it really helps them with that ILP to help guide what evidence they want to select. We have video evidence, we have paper evidence. I mean, our PE teachers are able to film, and so you just have to be creative and let the teacher show their demonstration of how they are making impacts with students. Yes, it's all about choice. And really that's what's so important when we looked at the contextual framework of the mentor and of the teacher, because even in my district, which is not that large, one side of the valley can be a certain way, and then the other side of the valley can be, and if we went in with a one-size-fits-all, it would not help the teachers grow in their practice.
I'll just add to that. It sounds like in the program in my district in Southern California, it's amazing the transition. And when you're talking about the triad meetings, they become candidate driven instead of top down driven. And it's very much more meaningful to the candidates, and it helps them find the areas, especially when they constantly monitor the continuum across the CSTPs. I just think the way we have transitioned and the new things coming from the state has been way more meaningful to candidates.
Right. And if I can add to that, site administrators have been thoroughly supportive because they felt that in 2 years in the old system, they were untouchable. I can't, talk to the teacher. I can't do anything. But now, as you said, it is candidate driven, and site administrators have had a much more positive view of induction because they know that they have a teacher with the support of a mentor to help with school initiatives and school-wide goals.
I'm sorry.
So, in terms of your work, because this is a learning year, implementation is expected, but our teams, our peers, and our institutions are trying their best. One of the things that you might see on site visit reports, you may see more times when it says met with concerns, or you may see more times when it says inconsistent, because the teams really struggle because they can see forward movement lots of times, but they're not there. There could be cases where institutions haven't launched the program, and then that would be feedback there too. So even as Karen was saying, it was a good program under the old standards, but if they haven't moved towards the new standards, it's the new standards that are the standards that are that teams are making determinations against. And so as a body, you'll have opportunities then to ask questions of site visit representation, whether it's the team or whether it's the institutional reps, or you may determine that, okay, this looks like it's going in a good direction, but maybe we need some follow-up in a year, if it's inconsistent, where's it going? And so I think in some ways the site visit reports are really going to you may have to grapple with them a little bit more than you have in the past. I mean, Cheryl, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's true. I think it will be more grappling because I think the teams are grappling and I think the institutions are grappling. Like I said, I think some are they're on it, they're moving forward, but I think, for good reason, there's a number of them trying to still try to figure it out. And when we tried to lighten the load on the transition documents, instead of having institutions rewrite to the standards, we had them just tell us, okay, what's going to be a major change for you and what's a moderate change and what's, not going to have to change at all. So we tried to lighten the load on the bureaucraticness of the commission so that they had the time to focus and to really make the changes they needed to make at the local level. But we are clearly seeing that some are still working on it. So, but I think that's a good summary. I think you're going to see a level of disparity, and you might see some inconsistency in the reports because that's where the field is right now. So I think we just kind of try to work through it. We try to calibrate people as best we can in this fluid environment right now. So.
Yes, Coach Moore.
Just actually one more. How does this process, well, I'll just take a step back, and I love the changes. I think it's so much more meaningful having lived in the years of going from bucket loads of evidence to bucket loads of electronic evidence to now, and having to deal with all the complaints. This isn't meaningful for me. I'm sorry, the standards say you have to do it. To this evidence-based individualized learning plan based on district needs and the menu of choices. I think adult learning theory
says that adults like to be respected and have choices and ownership over their own work. I'm curious about how, and Karen, you touched on this just a little bit, how this is affecting how we select, train, and provide ongoing professional development for our mentors.
Yeah, so that I believe is maybe the heart of these standards, because it is in that training of mentors, and it's very spelled out in the standards, in the new standard 4. So the qualifications that they need to have, the guidance and expectations for them as mentors, and then the ongoing training and support that the program needs to provide. So I almost, see it somewhat as a trainer-trainer models, where the program is really working with the mentors in a much deeper way to work with the candidates. So again, I think program leaders in the room could speak more directly to the differences that they've had in their mentor training. We've seen a smattering of it in site visits now, and as I've worked with programs the past year. But I think that some things are continuing. So if there have been good practices around coaching and mentoring that have been implemented by the district, it makes sense to continue that. There has been increased training around that ILP. So that's definitely, so how do you use that individualized learning plan as that roadmap for the candidate over time? And it seems like there's been kind of thematic instruction with mentors around working with the CSTP in a different ways, because FACT and the formative assessment systems were based in the CSTP as well. But how do you work with the CSTP when the candidate is more driving that process? The standards really speak to two kinds of mentoring support that's needed. That just-in-time kind of survival and brand new in the classroom, brand new in the school, help me just survive here. So really training around that, what in the standards is called just-in-time training, and then really that continued, which again, Induction and BITSA did so well over time, that deep inquiry-based reflective look at practice to move us ahead as practitioners. So James, I don't know if you have anything else to add in how you've changed your mentoring system, but I think that's been a pretty seismic change in programs.
I would just say that training now is not around forms, it's around coaching and mentoring. Really also looking at observation techniques. Again, a tool. What is it that the teacher is working on? How can a mentor observe in a way that would capture evidence to help support that teacher in whichever CSTP he or she is working in? I think one of the big things that has happened and excited to see is more observations by mentors, because really, as we all know, you can have a beautifully written lesson plan and it can either go one way or the other in the classroom. And really what it is it's important to see what the students see and how the teacher is preparing, how the teacher is differentiating, and how that teacher can take what is being done in the classroom to then help he or she grow as a teacher. So I would say that's where we have really moved. But one thing I would like that's in the standard now that has helped is the concept of releasing mentors who are not providing the support that they should. We had mentor or support providers who it was like a Supreme Court appointment. I mean, they were there forever, and it was because the principal loved them or something of that nature. But now we have had to look at more performance-based expectations on the part of a mentor, and if need be, we release that person if we have to. And of course, you have to be careful of your district and your association. I mean, luckily we have the support with our district and our association to do that. But I think that's important because we want to make sure that these young teachers have the best mentoring experience possible.
I would just like to add one thing, because I think as these standards are, both transformational and visionary, we run up against reality as well. So that's very much where we're at, I think, across the state in terms of mentoring in some ways. The observation is a big part, both observing candidates and candidates observing veteran teachers, is a big part of the training of the mentors and the mentors working with the candidates. But there's just not a whole lot of subs out there, right, for release time, and that's a concern. So needing to be creative around that. I think James spoke to videotaping, team teaching opportunities, so I think that just, really working within what the standards are designed to do, and trying to figure that out with the landscape that's currently out there, and doing that the best we can so that we continue to move forward when potentially that landscape changes. So.
A last thought on this topic, at least for me, is that, I think about Terry Clark when she talks about this topic. And Terry always talks about how we almost lost induction. About 2 years ago, legislators were ready to get rid of it because they had gotten so many complaints about the paperwork and the bureaucracy involved. And so they were ready to pull the plug on it. And I think what we've done, the whole make lemonade out of lemons, I think it's gone in such a great direction to not only save it, but to make it what it truly should be. And, I think giving the field the time to digest and figure out how to make this happen and to put the pieces in place, I think is really important. So, it's already showing in some of the site visit reports about how well things are going out there in the field and what can be done and what the promise is. So it's kind of exciting, actually.
Member Morrison.
I have a question. I probably should know the answer to this, but I'm taking Cheryl's suggestion that we use the time to ask questions. And all of this sounds like it costs a lot of money with mentors and release time and all the rest of it. I'm just wondering, who, around the states, who's paying for this, and if different districts, if your experience where this is provided by the districts, or it's expected that the new teachers pay for this, and I imagine there is a difference. And are you seeing differences in the kind of training that teachers are getting in these inductions programs, depending on whether the district's paying for it or they're required to pay for it themselves?
That's actually a great question, and one we try to avoid. No, I'm kidding. That's a really big issue around the state, and the commission doesn't have purview over that. That is a local decision. How they implement a program in terms of who they charge to run it. So there's been a kind of up and downness about that over time. For many years, really since its inception, BITSA was a state-funded program. So districts received a per participant funding. That was the model for candidates to participate. So however many you had, you received that money, and you also provided an in-kind match. With local control funding formula, that went away a number of years ago, and along with that, a recession hit, and there was a real dip in the ability to figure out how to offer this credential-based program to teachers. And so at that time, districts really did look at charging teachers more, and that then started to come up. And in the years since then, and under these new standards, what we seem to be seeing across the state, and I don't have any hard data on this, but I certainly can tell you my experiences in working with programs all across the state, is that very few are charging. They continue, if they're a consortium, to charge their partnering districts, of course, and but a couple of, I think, reasons for that. One is it's economically viable to train these new teachers if they stay. And so if you train them well, they're much more likely to stay. So there's just kind of a basic economic model around that. And two, as we enter a teacher shortage, it's a recruitment tool. So if you look on EndJoin, I still see BITSA, but you see BITSA provided. So it is certainly if a candidate has two neighboring districts to choose from, and one is providing induction at no cost and another is charging, then it is a recruitment consideration. So districts seem to be within the general pot of money that they get, seem to be supporting this program. We do see some charging. There seems to be more in the San Diego area that are doing that, much less so in the rest of the state. But I really hope I turned my phone off. I'm thinking that's me. I'm so sorry. We'll just ignore it. It's probably like one of my kids wanting their bike lock or something. So I hope that answered it.
Any other further comments or questions? Great. Thank you all for the great work. It's exciting and very meaningful, so thank you for that. We're on to item 6, and we actually have an insert for item 6, which is also posted on the website, but there's one at your desk site there. So what I'm going to recommend is that we take a 5-minute break to go ahead and use that time to read the item that you have before you, since it's new to us, and do a stretch break if you'd like to do that.
There are 2 new programs that we've added since we uploaded it on the website, and those are both the Davis Joint Unified School District. They're on page 1 and 2, so those are the 2 that we're asking you to read.
Yep. Okay, so let's take 5. All right, we can take our seats and we'll reconvene. I just met them. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 6. So if you take our seats, please. So item 6 is the section dealing with program approval recommendations. The item is organized into 5 sections, and we'll move through the items section by section, taking our time. Please note that the staff has reordered this item so that all the action items are listed sequentially in Part 1, sections A, B, C at the beginning of this item. Part 2, sections D and E are for notification purposes only, and no action is needed. So we're going to begin with the program approvals, and at this point I'd like to invite to the table representatives from the Davis Joint Unified School District. We have Juliana Sykes and Connie Best. Please join us. And if you would please take a moment to introduce yourselves and what your role is with the institution.
There we go. Good morning. I'm Juliana Sykes. I'm the Director of Teacher Intern Programs with Davis Joint Unified, and our program is the Yola Solano Center for Teacher Credentialing.
Hi, I'm Connie Best, and I'm the Executive Director for Yola Solano Center for Teacher Credentialing. We have the intern program both for general ed, special ed, and CTE, and now happily adding special ed intern program.
Great, thank you and welcome. Actually, before we proceed, I should ask if there are any recusals for any of the items. All right, no recusals. So at this point, do we open this for discussion? Or okay, is there a motion to go ahead and approve the program of professional preparation for education specialists, mild and moderate intern at Davis Joint Unified? Moved by Committee Member Borges, seconded by Committee Member Scone. All in favor? I'm sorry, any discussion? Now will be the point for questions and comments that you might have. They traveled a long way. So let's make it worth it. And they've sat and listened, so let's make it worth their while.
LP to demonstrate and apply the standards, and what kind of training you're doing for your induction standards. I know we're on your intern program, but we had some people pointing at you as being experts, and I'm curious to have you at the table in a few minutes.
And your question is related specifically to the induction program. Okay, I'm going to toss it over to Connie.
Well, that is something that Karen Sacramento and I have been talking a lot about, as well as I work closely with all of the members of Cluster 1. We still do meet regularly as a cluster of induction leaders, and we are truly grappling with what does this look like, and especially your question about what is that assurance? How do we know? we did have a system where we are a locally designed system and have always been. And that was, while we have always allowed our teachers to choose their own questions, we're a consortium. So we do work with the local districts and their initiatives and what they want for their teachers. That was a strong component of our program. We also did have documents to help with the scaffolding of the inquiry process. Pulling that back, one thing that's unique that I found in my program, after some data collection, over 75% of my mentors went through our program. Which, while that's a yay, and that's a really awesome thing, now it's, okay, those are just scaffolds. Do not make them do those papers. Well, that's not always the case. I can say that all day long. There's safety in knowing that they're doing it right. And working with a generation of teachers who have filled out papers as they went through elementary school and high school and college, and knowing that they did what they were supposed to do, I'm now asking them to not do that. And they want to know, how do I know? And that's a question I'm asking, how do I know? So one of the things that we do with our mentors is a lot of training. Some training that we've always done as part of our program has been Mentoring Matters, just for our mentors, and it's a 2-year training that we do with them, their first 2 years. Then they also have trainings set aside that all mentors will go through where they're looking at what is the inquiry process? What does that look like in support with this new teacher? Knowing that we have teachers coming from a variety of different pathways. Everything from within the state through a traditional prep program, from out of state, out of country. How do we develop something that's going to meet their needs? And so we do have trainings throughout. And those we've maintained even with the new standards, so that that contact point with our mentors happens pretty much at least every 5 weeks. We're meeting with them.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting work that's happening in the field.
Challenging.
Yeah, and challenging. You know, that word grapple. It sounds kind of nice, but you're struggling. A quick question on the intern, usually driven by need. How many candidates do you anticipate being in this program next year?
Sure. So we already see quite a need within our service area. When we look at one data point, which is how many teachers are working on permits within our service area, we've seen an increase in 61% of teachers on permits from one academic year to the next. That combined with contacts from HR leads in local districts saying, we have unfilled positions, do you have credentialed teachers, lets us know that we certainly will have candidates coming to us. At this time, we are currently accepting enrollment for a pre-service, both a summer and spring session. We have approximately 20 candidates, as well as we have teachers working on permits within SPED positions that are interested in entering into the intern program once accredited.
It sounds like you have a solid cohort coming in. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, there's a motion on the table then to accept the program of professional preparation for education specialist, mild and moderate intern. Cheryl, should we do each one separately? You want to do the two as a group? Okay, since we already have the motion on the table and seconded if we're individually, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Let's then make it formal. Let's look at the next one here. That is the programs of professional preparation for education specialist, moderate to severe intern. Is there a motion to approve? A motion made by Committee Member Webb. Is there a second? By a lot of people, we'll say. We'll have this one seconded by Committee Member Malatayo. And let's open it for discussion questions. Having received none, the vote, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations on both counts.
Thank you all so much.
Next is up Section B, which is the recommendation regarding the withdrawal of professional preparation programs. And one is requested by the institution. The second list of institutions are those where the programs were inactive for over 5 years. There are no automatic withdrawals at this meeting to consider, and Right, and there's one program sponsor withdrawing 2 programs. Are any recusals on this item? All right, no recusals noted. Is there a motion to approve the withdrawals for all the institutions listed in this section? So moved by Co-Chair Moore. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Borges. Any discussion? All right, no discussion. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item section C. The program requesting activation. This section is for an action. There is one program requesting activation at this time. And Gay Roby worked with the institution to review their materials for reactivation. So Gay, will you please introduce the item?
Thank you. University of San Francisco is a faith-based organization with a quite small, relatively, population. And so when they transitioned to the new standards, they, like all programs, sort of did a self-evaluation of, is this a program that we should currently be offering? And took some time off to really determine if that was so. And they're coming back saying, yes, it's something we do want. And our clientele is asking for us to have a preliminary administrative program. So they submitted all of the new standards, how they will embed things into their preliminary program. They attended one of our workshops. 2 of them came to really wrestle with program implementation and performance expectations, and have been working diligently in getting ready for the reactivation should it be authored. And I think we are being joined by one of the co-directors, Dang Feng. It should be on.
I don't know. Dan Fang, are you on the Zoom? Doesn't sound like she's on. I know she was. Okay, thank you. Okay, she was supposed to be joining us, but I know she was en route somewhere. So maybe she just couldn't pull over. I think Gay has all the information you need. I know that Co-Chair Moore had asked me, she noticed the date on here was July, and I just want to remind you that what happens when you go when an institution asks to reactivate is the letter that comes to us is the first step in the process. So the letter comes, and the institution must address any activities that we've required of all the other programs of that nature in that time period that they were inactive. So because they had been inactive, I can't remember how many years, a couple of years. They had to do the kinds of things that all the other preliminary admin programs had to do in terms of telling us about the transition and working with Gay. So that there's a time period in there that they have to do some things. So that's why it took so long. They actually were approved the day before your last meeting, but we couldn't get it on. So there was that delay as well.
Thank you, Ms. Roby. Yeah, anybody have any questions? All right, seeing no questions. Anyone need to recuse himself? Okay, we're going to look for a motion to accept the reactivation of the program at University of San Francisco. Motion by Committee Member Alvarado. Is there a second? By Committee Member Scott. All in favor? I'm sorry, further discussion at all? None. All right, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're now moving on to Part 2, and these items are for notification only. Sections D and E are, again, notification only. No action is needed. Section D deals with the programs transitioning, and there is one institution transitioning from general ed induction to teacher induction, and now can serve all candidates, so become general ed and education specialist. That is the Lodi Unified School District. The other one is Section E, programs moving to inactive status. This section is for notification only. No action needed, and there are 4 program sponsors moving 8 programs to inactive status. Any committee member have any questions or comments? All right, thank you. Seeing none. Oh, I thought I saw it. No, okay. I thought Erin had her hand up there. All right, seeing none. It's okay. Moving on to item 7. Item 7 is the initial program approval for new program sponsors. And this is the agenda item where we would consider any new program proposals from institutions that just received provisional approval from the Commission. The Commission did award provisional approval to High Tech High Graduate School of Education at the February Commission meeting. However, their program proposals are still under review at this time. Therefore, there are no initial program approvals for new program sponsors to report at this time. Okay. Moving right along, item 8, and that's a discussion of late documents, and we invite consultant Hart Boyd to present this action item. Anyone need to recuse himself? All right. Mr. Boyd, please begin.
Thank you. Good morning. This is an item that comes before you at each COA meeting and provides information on institutions who have not or did not comply with the timelines established in the accreditation cycle. As you can see in this item, there are some tables provided, and we have followed up with these 3 institutions listed, and all incomplete or late documentation has been received. So there isn't really anything to report right now. You should note, though, that Common Standards submissions are due on February 28th for the yellow cohort. So perhaps at the next COA meeting there might be some information to report, but hopefully not. I don't really anticipate many questions, but if you have any, I'll try to answer them.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Boyd. Appreciate it. Item 9 is a 10 o'clock time certain. And do we have the representatives here? Great. This is the report of the accreditation team visit to Humphreys University. Consultant Bob Locks will introduce the item. Joining him by Zoom is the team lead, Darby Williams, and institutional representative, and at the table, Donna Roberts, who is the chair of graduate studies. Welcome. And Mr. Locks, when you're available, ready, please begin.
Thank you. On November 14th, the site visit team took a ride down I-5 and down to Stockton and visited Humphreys University for their first accreditation meeting. While the university has been active for over 100 years, it first started at its multiple subject teaching credential program in 2012. And one of the big things that I think impressed the entire team was that the diversity that this program had, and is probably the most diverse program that I've ever seen, and really mimics the diversity of the city of Stockton itself. And one other item that was, I'd like to point out that the university's actually been in operation for 120 years and has only had 4 presidents in that time. So I think that really, after our visit, reflecting back, I saw that stability is really seen in the teaching credential program that they have. And again, they just have their multiple subject teaching credentials, not single subject as of yet, but just the multiple subject program. And with that, I'll give it to Darby, our team lead, and let her tell you what our conclusions were.
Thank you very much. It's a very small program, small and powerful. I think the candidates wanted to canonize Dr. Roberts. They do, very much so. And the communication, they look at themselves as a team, and the communication between all levels is wonderful. So I have the pleasure of saying that based upon the evidence, the team found that all the common standards were met, and that all the multiple subject program standards were met. So based upon this process, the team recommends accreditation.
Hello. We really appreciated the site visit. It was a very positive experience, and it really allowed for us to explore the hard work that we've been doing and our efforts to really meet the needs of our diverse student population. We hope to continue to grow. We're working on an internship model right now, and then in the future move to single subject. So we're small, but we're working hard. So we really appreciate your time that you spent with us and meeting with all of our stakeholders. And so we just want to thank you.
Any comments, any questions at all from any of the committee members? Committee member Alvarado.
So in the report, it notes that TPA results hadn't been used for program improvement, but that you're in the process of making that a part of your model. It also speaks to informal feedback. What candidate and stakeholder feedback? What exactly does that look like?
Okay, great. Let's see, is this on? Yes, okay. So we have been using it informally during our department meetings, which is comprised of all the faculty that teach within the program. And so as the department chair, I do share findings around the TPA results in a general sense. And we look with that to continuously strengthen our courses that we offer, so that way we are meeting the students' needs. We found a particular need with supporting English learners, and so that's something that we've really worked to rev up in 2 of the courses to help bring that about. And so, again, also during our advisory meetings, we are bringing more and more students, more candidates to the meetings to express their thoughts, concerns, feedback regarding the TPA process and things that we could do as a program to better serve them. So it's all in motion. Thank you.
Committee member Balatayo.
This is in the same vein as Committee Member Alvarado's, or Commissioner Alvarado's comments. I see here that there is a personalized system in place, and is that then your comment earlier, the driving force to, creating this personalized system and supporting your candidates?
Right, yeah, and being such a small program, as the department chair, I'm their #1 advocate. So not only do I teach within the program, but I'm leading our faculty team towards the continuous quality and improvement matters, and just really working to advise them, set them through their ed plan, and then also I oversee the student teaching experiences. So then I'm also there giving them feedback and helping them develop that IDP at the end of the program. So they have me from start to finish, and I'm right there to support them all the way in their growth and development as an aspiring teacher. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Co-Chair Moore.
I really enjoyed reading the report. It was just gave us lots of information and answered almost all questions we might have. But I did want just a little bit of clarification on the cohort model, since your numbers are so small and entry point is at any time. How do you get your candidates together so that they get that feeling of having support from each other?
Right. We have found that there's great value in that cohort model, and be it very small, groups of 6 to 10 students at a time are moving through the program together. And so what we have done is broke it into blocks. So we have our block 1 foundational courses, the block 2, which is the methods courses, and then our block 3, which is the clinical experience or student teaching model. And so we're able to move them from start to finish in the program. They build those relationships among their peers. And then again, I'm there as well to provide the support. And so it's been a really successful endeavor. There is quite something to say about a very small class size where they can get that one-on-one support from their instructors and professors, as well as having an advisor present all the time for them to really help meet their needs. So one of the things we can very positively say is that the Humphrey students feel very well supported in the program, which I know came out during the interview process.
That also came out in the report. The last line of the report was that they would recommend the program to other people. So congratulations on such great feedback, the results of the site visit, and a great report.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, this is an action item, so is there a motion to go ahead and accept the recommendation to provide or to offer accreditation for Humphreys University? So moved by Committee Member Erickson, seconded by Committee Member Balatayo. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Ms. Roberts, Ms. Williams, and Mr. Locks. Thank you very much. Item 10. Are they all here for 10:30? Oh, great. Okay, we're now going to move on then to item 10. That is a report of the accreditation team to Cal Lutheran University. Consultant Katie Croy will introduce the team, and with her at the table will be team lead Edmundo Litton and institutional representatives Dr. Michael Hillis, Dean and Professor of the Graduate School of Education, and Dr. Lori Selby, the Assessment Director and Lecturer and TPA Coordinator. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? We have one recusal, Committee Member Erickson. All right, Ms. Croy, will you please begin?
Whoops. It was great to serve as the consultant for the California Lutheran University site visit, and as you said, we have our team lead here and our institutional representatives, and they're all joining us in person. And apparently, just in case you don't know, it really doesn't matter whether you live in San Francisco or Southern California. You all get up at 4:15 to get here today, as noted by the text message I got from Edmundo this morning. And I think it was a text of joy to be able to do this. It really was, which was surprising at 4:15 this morning when I was also up. But thank you all for being here and participating in this important process. Not that you all had too much of a choice, but we're glad that you came today to finish this out. The visit took place in Thousand Oaks, California, and as you see in the report, California Lutheran operates the 8 active programs. There's 1 inactive program, and the preliminary report of findings from the program assessment and program review indicated preliminarily alignment with the standards. And the team lead, Dr. Litton, and his team of 2 BIR members for the common standards and 4 for the programs were a great team to work with, and I want to personally just thank them for their dedication and their commitment to this. They were available in advance. We had phone conferences and arrived on Sunday and completed interviews through Tuesday with a report on Wednesday, and there were no unusual circumstances. Dr. Litton will now provide an overview of the visit and summarize the findings of the Common Standards programs and the recommendation for the accreditation decision.
Good morning. I'd also like to express our appreciation to the faculty and staff and administration at California Lutheran University for providing us with the information that we needed to make a fruitful site visit. After examining all the evidence that was presented, the site visit team is making a unanimous recommendation of accreditation to the Committee on Accreditation. The recommendation is based on the following. The team determined that all program standards are fully met for the credential programs in multiple subject, single subject, education specialists, moderate, mild moderate, moderate severe, deaf and hard of hearing, administrative services, school counseling, and child welfare and attendance. The team also determined that all common standards are fully met. We found that CLU provides the necessary support and infrastructure so that programs not only meet standards but also concretizes the mission of the university by preparing educators who serve their communities. Faculty and staff in the Graduate School of Education play a key role in the life of the university. CLU has an admission and advisement system that supports candidates. We learned that the clinical experiences provide candidates with a true learning experience that prepares them for their chosen careers. The Graduate School of Education has an assessment system and data is used for program improvement. Lastly, the faculty and staff are making the necessary steps to determine the impact of the programs on the constituents CLU serves. Throughout our interviews, there were themes that surfaced. The CLU candidates and completers stated that they appreciated the care and support from faculty and staff. They also had very positive comments on their preparation. District personnel and employers, whether they be cooperating teachers, principals, or superintendents, shared a clear message that CLU graduates could be counted on to do a good job at their schools. The employer stated that they would hire a CLU graduate without any doubt. One employer stated that she has been hiring CLU graduates for the last 29 years and has never been disappointed. The accreditation team verified that California Lutheran University and its programs, when judged as a whole, met or exceeded the Commission's adopted common standards and program standards applicable to CLU. CLU, including its credential programs, is judged to be effective in preparing educators and is demonstrating overall quality in its programs and general operations. Therefore, the unanimous recommendation of the site visit team is accreditation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Corey. Thank you, Mr. Litton. At this point, we invite the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit, and if you have any opportunities to argue the team report, this is not it. So please.
Well, thank you. So my name is Mike Hillis. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Education. I'm also the interim chair of teacher education. Hopefully that label will be short-lived, and that will be taken care of this spring. I've been involved in accreditation work for a lot of years. I was an NCATE BOE member for 10 years and have done a lot of state visits as well when I was in the state of Washington. And so as a result of that, I've always been committed to the accreditation process. Having recently come to California 2.5 years ago, that actually put another layer of complexity on the system for me to learn California standards, learn how you do things down here, which is, it's okay. And yeah, that's right. But what I would say through all of that, being an institution that was on the front end of new teaching standards, the new accreditation process, I went into it with wide open eyes, expecting that it was going to be a challenge, which accreditation always is. But thankfully, I think because of the great work of the team with Katie and Edmundo and also Jake Schuler, they really helped lead us through the process in a wonderful way. I'd also be remiss if I didn't have a very public thank you to my colleague, Dr. Lori Selby, who's our assessment director. And I mean, I'm kind of a figurehead in reality. If you have any specific questions, you should ask her. But in general, the process was incredibly positive for us. Obviously, the team finding positive things about our program helps for sure. I've been on both sides of that. But I think at the same time, the level of care and commitment to the process was evident through the whole process for us. And so overall, very positive.
Dr. Selby, would you like to offer any comments?
Just a brief one. The team that worked with us was fabulous. From beginning to end, we had daytime conversations, we had nighttime conversations, we had emails, and oh, here's another email, and can you talk a minute? Very, very supportive, an excellent team. Their questions were sound and solid and valid, and they were supportive all the way through. We did have the fortunate opportunity of Chamber of Commerce weather in Southern California, so it was perfect for walking our campus. But it was very, very positive, and our faculty, who are not always enamored with the concepts of accreditation demands, feel like it was a very productive process for them, and they're excited about the things that we've learned. So I would say it was excellent, and thank you very much for the work of this commission.
Great. Thank you for your comments. No 415 text for you? Oh, okay. All right. This is a discussion item. Any comments or questions from the members of the COA? All right. I'm always looking. All right. Seeing none, this is an action item. So is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the accreditation team to grant accreditation for all programs noted within the report? So moved by Committee Member Morrison. Is there a second? Committee Member Porges. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you so much. $11 is time certain. Should we move 15 up? Okay. So.
I was just going to say that I probably could get my 11:30s here already, and I could get them on Zoom pretty quickly as well. So
okay,
we
great.
can. Great. Okay.
All right, so let's move forward then with item 11. That's the report of the accreditation team to Bakersfield City Schools. Consultant Gay Roby will introduce the item. And with her by Zoom is team lead Julie Sheldon, and at the table, institutional representative Valerie Saylor. Anyone need to recuse himself? Committee member Erickson.
And we do have Julie on the Zoom.
We hear?
Yeah. Just double checking.
I'm here. I'm here.
All right.
Great.
Great.
I'm not
Great.
sure if you can see me, but I'm here.
Okay.
All right, great. Welcome. Ms. Roby, will you please begin?
Sure. Thank you very much. The site visit for Bakersfield City Schools, which is the largest elementary school district in the state of California, took place on November the 7th through the 9th last fall, 2017. Their site visit review team had 3 members, a team lead, a common standards reviewer, and a program sampling reviewer, plus a site consultant. They interviewed 12 different stakeholder groups representing 165 people that are intimately involved with their program. The visit had no extraordinary circumstances. It went as planned. And I would like to introduce Julie Sheldon, the team lead for this site visit, who will present the actual report.
Thank you, Kay. And I want to start by thanking Valerie and the entire Bakersfield School District for their warm welcome to the team, their organization before the visit, and during the visit. We literally could not make a move throughout that school district office without someone right at our side guiding us along and offering whatever help we needed. So they were absolutely wonderful. The team that Valerie has put together is so supportive and strong, and we really enjoyed working with them. I also want to thank my fellow team members, Dan Schaefer and Liz Luttrell, for their positive presupposition and professionalism, both before the visit and after, and of course, our fearless leader, Kay Roby, for her guidance and her help. This is one of the first site visits of that year, which was a bridging year for green cohorts, because it was quite challenging for both the programs and in some cases for the team as they transitioned to the new standards. But Valerie and her team actually worked the year before to start transitioning to the new standards. So we really saw a clear vision of that movement to the new standards, to more individualization for her candidates, and their choice in presenting what evidence of their growth that they would choose to present as movement towards competency. So one of the highlights, I'm going to say, for our team were the interviews. We had good numbers of interview participants, and from the district administration, the site administrators, all throughout the program, there was a clear understanding of that vision, of the importance of the program, and the support needed throughout all of the levels of the district, and their buy-in for the importance of this program and for the support of the new teachers. I also want to talk about the program specialists, because we were really struck, the team was struck by the immediacy of support that they offered. They gave feedback weekly. They made site visits often to the school sites, and they were part of layers of support for the Bakersfield School District. I also want to say that we were very impressed by the role that Valerie plays, not only in that program and in that district, but in that region with a team of directors. I think she spearheaded the challenge of meeting the new standards and forged ahead, and is a model for other directors. That was very clearly seen in the interviews. And they really view her as a support, and this program as a model for the area and for the other programs. So as we reviewed the evidence and did the interviews and completed our site visit, the team unanimously agreed that all program standards were met, all common standards were met, and that our recommendation is for full accreditation. So I welcome any questions the Commission might have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sheldon. At this point, we want to invite the institutional representative to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you this is not a time to re-argue the team report.
There we go. I just want to thank the team. We had what was called an aggressive interview schedule because there were so many participants to interview, and the team did a remarkable job. Our building that we are housed in is referred to as a maze, and so it's an old building that has been redone and remodeled several times. So kudos to the team for going through the maze, not getting lost, and just meeting with all the different interview groups. The team was very supportive and professional throughout, and it was a little bit, I don't know what word I'm looking for, challenging to look at, oh, wow, this is a November visit in the Green Cohort for an induction program, but the visit was very smooth, and I just appreciate all the work of the team. And thank you, Julie. And Gay.
Thank you, Ms. Saylor. Any comments or questions from the committee at this point? We have Committee Member Alvarado.
So in the report on continuous improvement, it speaks to completer surveys, exit surveys, for receiving feedback on areas to improve, but I'm wondering how you receive feedback from employers, or do you incorporate that into your model for continuous improvement?
So we are a single district program, so we are the program and the employer. We do receive feedback from all of our site administrators, both formally and a lot of informal, because we do visit our schools. My team of program specialists and myself are in our schools on a regular basis, and we're participating in the administrative meetings and things. So we get continual informal feedback, and we do also survey the site administrators.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Committee Member Morrison.
Hi. In the report of Common Standard 5, it surprisingly, because everything else is consistent, it says that you inconsistently meet the standard there. Do you want to say anything about that?
I have spent a lot of time reflecting on that, and I've had some conversations with Gay and with Karen Sacramento and with Terry Clark. It was a moment in time, and we do feel that we are very consistent with the CSDP. My reflection on it is it was the change from the structured formative assessment system. We really did take a deep jump into taking the opportunity to reformat the whole program. We kept a lot of what was strong from our old program, particularly around mentor training. We've always had upfront training when mentors are new, and we meet with them actually monthly to train and work with teachers. But anyway, Our CSTP is reflected on the ILP, the CSTP that each candidate is working on with their area of focus. We also do use the continuum still so that our candidates are looking at all the CSTP over time. So I struggled with that inconsistent, but it is what it is, and it's what the team saw at that time as we were transitioning into the new standards.
Community Member Webb.
And what I was going to say is that I think in reading the report, your transition to the standards is very reflective of that. And just as a follow-up question to what Mr. Morrison asked, I'm just wondering, as you are looking for, because you had a November site visit, and some of these people are still like, where's the pencil sharpener, you know? So my question is, what are you thinking about as you are looking, you know, at your first group coming in as final assessments? I'm just curious, have you thought about that and what that might look like for your candidates?
Yes, we've thought a lot about that. We've talked a lot in our stakeholder groups. We have cycles of inquiry, and we do have a rubric that goes with that. The candidates are presenting evidence, and we really opened up that evidence, which was referred to from some programs earlier today in this meeting. But when we opened it up, we had no idea how rich that evidence would become when we let them. We have videos, we have research notes. We never suggested that. They're just there, you know. Student work, observations, reflections. So they are going through cycles of inquiry as part of their ILP, and we are looking at the results of that learning against the CSTP. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And just a follow-up question. So what processes do you have in place then if a teacher would require additional time? How would that look, you know, with involvement from the mentor with your role?
As Julie referenced earlier, we do have a very, what I call boots on the ground program, where our program specialists and our mentors and our participants are all in contact all the time. So it's actually pretty rare because we see things in real time, and we provide extra support, whether that's from our program, from the site, from other departments in our district. We have a robust special education department, English learner department, and curriculum department. So those people, as well as site coaches and site administrators, are all working with our new teachers. So it hasn't happened yet in the new program, although it's very new, but we do have an established system for presenting additional evidence, and hopefully it wouldn't come to that, but needing to extend the induction time for the opportunity to go through an additional cycle of inquiry or receive support for an area that is not met.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Co-Chair Moore.
First, congratulations. It's clear in the report, which is very well written, easy to read, lots of information in there, that your team truly cares about the outcome of the teachers in your program and the boots on the ground. I also read in the report, in between the lines, a little bit of grappling that you're doing, and it was a good job foreshadowing for us earlier with all that information, because that's helpful in reading the report. And great questions on the around the CSTP, because I had that also. I was wondering a little bit about the required PD that you have. I know some programs are moving away from required anything, which I think might be challenging when you need to get everybody on the same page about program requirements and moving forward, or providing them the opportunity to network. So can you talk to us a little bit about the required PD versus the opportunity for PD?
So we bring the induction group together at the beginning for an orientation. That's required, but that's informational for the most part. And then we the PD throughout the program is mostly optional, but we have a lot of structured in-district PD, so there are things that people we know are participating in because of what their site or their program requires. We also, as far as our program is concerned, we have points about quarterly where we bring the group together, and it's usually around the time that most of the group would be starting the next inquiry process. We have conversations about learning and more about how to tie in the PD that's already occurring throughout the district with that. And that gives them a time to network. And we also do an informal meeting with site administrators included at the end of year one to just share learning. It's just really a sharing of that year's learning. And then we do a more formal graduation that includes that sharing also at the end of the second year.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, this is an action item, so call for a motion to accept the recommendations as noted in the team report for Bakersfield City School District. So moved by Committee Member James Webb. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Borges. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. We want to thank you again, Ms. Saylor, Ms. Sheldon, Ms. Roby, for your work. Thank you. Now 11:30?
No, my 11:30 Zoom attendee is not available till 11.
Move 15 up. All right, so we're going to juggle the items just a little bit. We're going to look at item 15, originally scheduled for the afternoon session. We'll move that to the morning. And this is the update on accreditation activities. So Administrator Cheryl Hickey, will you please begin?
Yes, so we're trying to just keep you abreast of the accreditation system since we do have 7 cohorts of institutions all going through a 7-year cycle, and there's constantly things happening. So we wanted to make sure that you saw beyond the site visit, even though the site visit is a very important part of it, but there's a lot of things happening. So obviously if you look on page 1, we've iterated the cycle. So year 1 being the 1 and 4 being the preconditions submission, and then every year there's the new annual data submission that we'll talk about in a little bit, and then obviously in year 5 is when common and program standards both come in, different times of the year, but they both come in that year. And then the site visit, and then of course the follow-up based on what your decisions are. So right now we are juggling a lot of things. We have 29 site visits that are in process, but we're already planning for next year's site visits. So next year's a big year. There's going to be 36 site visits, so it's a bigger year than this year. We can skip you? Oh. Let's see. I don't think that's an option. Yeah. So it's a big year. We've already assigned consultants. They're already starting to work with those yellow color cohort institutions. We have some in the fall, which is really nice because what we've tried to do is balance the workload a little bit on site visits. And so we've asked institutions, if you're at all inclined, we'd love to have some additional ones in the fall. Now, as you see with this last report, the fall sometimes has some challenges. We don't always have, especially if it's a 1-year program, you don't always have candidates that have been through a lot of the program to be able to kind of give you that perspective that you can get. But if it's a 2-year program, you have year 2s that have been through at least the first year and then your completers. So, but we do have some in the fall, so that's great. And we have a lot happening. So the 1-year out pre-visits are happening with the consultants. They have the option of going in person or doing it via Zoom, and we have a combination of those. If it's a complicated institution, we really, with lots of programs, we'd like to be there in person. Sometimes that face-to-face really helps. We also have the 2-month out pre-visits happening for the green cohort. That's happening, right now. So those are happening, and then the site visits, of course. So I'm going to thank God for Catherine Carney and helping us juggle everything related to program review and common standards. It is, what do you call it? A Jenga game combined with something else.
With Match.com.
Match.com. So, Catherine, I'll turn those two over to you.
So, thank you. You may have seen me popping up and going back in the back and talking with people who've been here for their site visits. That's because those individuals have already said yes to being on teams in 2018-19. So, I see Valerie's still here.
Thank you.
She knows I reached out to her, and I really appreciate that. So during year 5, the yellow cohort has submitted program review and will be submitting Common Standards review at the end of this month. So if you look at the top of page 3, those are the yellow cohorts, and we call out Common Standards, but they also submitted program standards. And I'll tell you, it's been a real learning experience for staff as well as for our volunteers and our institutions. So we've really changed kind of well, I don't know that we've changed it. What I know is that we've really made it more overt. That I'm going to call it document review. I know that our chair doesn't like to call it document review because it's not just documents; it's evidence. But that has existed in the past. And there was this back and forth of editing of long narratives, and now, as you know, what comes in is evidence. Because what we talk with reviewers about, what we talk with institutions about, is prior to being approved, you're telling us what you're going to do through the initial program review process. However, once you're operational, you should be able to show us what you're doing. We don't rely on narrative. That's made some folks uncomfortable at first because they're used to a lot of verbiage talking about what it is. But what we're hearing preliminarily from our reviewers is that they do have adequate information in those submissions. We've also asked, both with green Common Standards and now with yellow program review and also coming up yellow Common Standards, is for reviewers to really put on the hat of helpfulness. And to, if they're feeling like a standard is preliminarily aligned, but they have like a but, to inform the institution, because this is a formative process. And so if they're on the fence between preliminary alignment and it needing more information, to ask for the more information, because really you're putting together almost a cookbook for the institution to be able to be successful in the site visit. So reviewers have really embraced that notion, and the feedback has been robust and in some cases quite specific. We then edit and review, or I should say review and edit, to like pull out if it's telling an institution how. We try to get it back to the standards language. But in some cases, reviewers have really taken the time to explain why they didn't get there. You know, we were missing this in our thinking. So now you add into the mix a group of highly successful program directors who are used to getting A+. Okay, that's their personality. That's who rises into director positions. I'm not meaning to call out anyone, but we heard how uncomfortable and inconsistent landed with a program director when all standards were met. So then you take the program review feedback, and it's not perfect because the reviewers were instructed and embraced the idea of giving feedback, helping them get ready for the site visit. So in some cases, institutions who've been used to getting aligned are like, whoa, I run a good program and you're now saying I don't run a good program. That is not what reviewers are saying. And I'm very aware that this is the public record. So that's why I'm calling this out now, because I really want to commend the reviewers who have, taken that to heart of helping an institution really get ready for a site visit and to disclose the places where they're feeling uneasy about a standard potentially being met or not met or met with concerns at a visit. That's also true in the Common Standards. So those reviews will for the yellow cohort. I think the first one's scheduled for the end of March. So what we did there is, and the reason why I'm thanking prospective team members, is that in order to get the common standards reviewed in a timely manner, we have to identify team leads and common standards members of the future site visit team, because they review it and then they go to the visit. Now, life intervenes sometimes, and we have to make replacements, especially like I've asked people to be on the April 29th, 2019 visit. And they've said yes, and they've marked their calendars, but something could happen between now and then. Hopefully not. But so all of that is going on, and as we finish out the green cohort and as the yellow cohort is ramping up for the site visit, the two additional things will happen. One, at the end of our last program review, and we tried not to overlap with program review being finished before common standards come in, but because of reviewers' schedules, we have a couple programs that are still out there. So when that's finished, we'll put a survey out to find out how it went, because this is the first year of implementation and we need to learn from that. Right now, not all of the program reviews have been returned to the institutions. What we do is we wait until all the programs within that institution have been reviewed. So institutions that have induction and no other programs, they've received their feedback. Institutions that, as we finish, we're sending them out to the institution. There's one institution that, because of reviewers' availability, there's one program that hasn't been reviewed in a very big institution. In all likelihood, we'll send them all but that program so that they're not stalled in waiting. And then they'll put together their addendums and have them up for the site visit team, which again will be a subset of the reviewers themselves at the visit. The other thing that's happening, so we're in green, I'm talking about yellow, for orange. Orange, who is going to be submitting program review documents in October, I'm in the process of scheduling some Zoom meetings. I'll schedule 6 or 8 of them. Orange only needs to attend one, but as they're beginning to get ready, we want to make sure that we help them answer questions, and we're available to do some of that kind of work with them. So those are in the planning process right now. And of course, we have webcasts up, and that we know people are making use of, and instructions are posted and all of that. So there's a lot going on, but it's really good work. And I think one of the side benefits, as I conclude talking about my little piece here, is that there is a large contingent of brand new reviewers involved in this process. We have had so many people who, as we are changing the system, are saying, I want to know more. And we've worked hard to try to pair a veteran reviewer with, even though no one's really a veteran reviewing program review because it's new for everyone, but someone who's more familiar with the system with someone who isn't. And then moving some of the folks who've been doing a lot of program sampling into common standards or team leadership, and bringing people into program sampling, and growing our pool of reviewers, because there's also a contingent of folks that have hit retirement age. And so if all we do is use the status quo and use the same folks again and again and again, we're going to be very short-handed. And also we get good reviewers and good team members, and then they become COA members, and then that puts a real monkey wrench into things. No ill will here, and I won't point fingers. But a lot of you here have helped with reviews and are now on here. So this, I think this process has opened the doors for some folks who might not have considered doing it before, and I think that's been a real bonus. And I love the combination of Jenga and Match.com, and I've never had so much fun in my life until someone calls and the Jenga rod pulls out. And I'm like, so no, it's been great, and we have a great field of stakeholders who want to be participants. So I think that's what you wanted me to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really helpful because to be able to focus on the policy pieces and the things that we need to get in place for the site visits, and have Catherine and the thing is it takes a village. So every single consultant that knows people in the field, William that works with special ed and Gay at admin, and they've all contributed in getting people in the system and getting refreshing that pool, which brings me to the BIR training. So we know that is a big need, and clearly what we tried to do this year with site visits is predominantly use people who have already been trained and been veteran reviewers, with a splattering of some new folks that we are trying to do sort of one-on-one training, at least to get through the year. But we definitely need to do some face-to-face BIR it's basically site visit training, because we do the training for program review in the program review sessions, and we do the training for common standards in the common standards sessions. So it's broken differently now under this new system than in the past, where we tried to shove everything into a 4-day face-to-face, and then over time we changed it to two days, basically modules, online modules, and then 2 days in face-to-face. So we are trying to reschedule that BIR training, which would be site visit training. It'd be really focused on site visit. We're trying to do that this summer sometime. We were very ambitious and tried to do it and thought about doing it last year, and it keeps getting moved, but I'm glad it's getting moved, because we've had the opportunity now to really refine our processes and procedures. And so I think that we're in a better position to train people than we were before. So we would have had to sort of retrain everybody. Go ahead, Catherine. I see that.
We're also able to identify who really, really needs to be in this first training, because you remember I talked about those new people who were doing program review, and a subset will be on the site visit. So they're going to be on a site visit. So they have to be our first invitation has to go out to them participating in the BIR training.
So that's a high priority for us soon. So we'll get those dates out, and we'll get that training set. I think I saw Suzanne. Did you have oh. Yes. Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to mention, though, so preconditions, they come in years 1 and 4, and that is the work of staff. We are reviewing the preconditions. The first year we changed this system, we had 3 cohorts coming in because Green, the site visit folks, had not done their preconditions. So we had to sort of catch up with Green and then add in the year 1 and 4. So we had a heavy workload this year with preconditions. And we also weren't as systematic about the evidence required as we hoped to be. So there was a lot of confusion, I think, by institutions and by our reviewers, our staff, about, is it enough for the unit head to sign off on this precondition just to say, yes, we're doing it, or does something need to be submitted? So we started with the general preconditions and came up with an evidence guide that says, here's acceptable evidence and here's unacceptable or insufficient evidence. We just this week, we've had a clamoring from induction, the community, to have a similar type document for induction preconditions. There are 6 preconditions in induction. So we sat around the table yesterday, and and produced a document. So that will be available soon, for induction, and we're just going to work our way through the various credential types to say what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And we had a really good discussion yesterday about, each of the preconditions and what we would expect. And I think that institutions will find these guidance documents very helpful, and it will also make our review of the preconditions very easy and straightforward. So, it's not so much a bump in a road as is, the commission made a lot of changes one particular time. And so just catching up with all those changes and putting processes and procedures in place has taken us a long time to do that. So, so that moves forward, and we have preconditions coming in for those 2 cohorts at the end of March. And so, that will be, another set of workload for us to do, but things are looking good there. So that's the other big thing. I think we've talked about most of them. Preconditions, common standards, program review, and we have a whole section on annual data that we'll talk about separately. So I think that's it on that one. Does anybody have any questions about this?
I just wanted to add one thing, because Cheryl mentioned staff with preconditions, and I talked a lot about our stakeholders, but truly the staff in PSD, in terms of all of these components, every single member of the staff is integral and is taking on things on kind of in addition to other requirements, and none of this work could have gone forward without everybody. We're just kind of up here doing the talking, but every part of this.
I had a question. Just the list that you were talking about from yesterday, will that be going out to the cohorts who have to submit by the end of March? Okay.
Exactly. We were just getting final sign off from Terry on everything, and then it will go out by no later than next week. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Committee Member Erickson.
As I was reading through and got to the end of this report, I had to giggle to myself because your last sentence is staff will continue to work on the many aspects of the accreditation system. So we just appreciate all of your work from everyone in the PSD, because it's amazing that we've done this in 2 years, all the changes.
Co-Chair Moore.
Yeah, so much happened when I was reading LCAPs. Whoa. And if you haven't seen it already, there is a new webcast on site visits, which I find is really informative. We are having our site visit coming up, but because we're having so many come before us, it might be a good thing to take a look at it. It's only an hour long, and it's really just one of my favorites. I thought it gave me all the information that I needed at this point, and would just really inform the COA members as we review all these site visits as to what it looks like if you had a site visit. I know Monterey had theirs like 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a while. What does it look like now? And you actually had a dual visit, I think, too, which was very challenging. So, anyways, just wanted to put that out there for our COA members.
Thank you. I know many of us have gone through the process of doing the early review, and I can't remember exactly how I got drawn into it, not dragged, drawn into it. I think it was a colleague at Chapman, and I started doing some of the early readings, and actually it was Katie and Gay that really got me involved when I went to some of the BIR trainings, that I really got turned on to it. I mean, before that, I heard the word accreditation, and my eyes just kind of glaze over, But it really turned me on to the work that is done here at the commission with the PSD, and just congratulations to all of you for all of your efforts that you do. It really, the more I become connected with the organization, the more I see the work that you really do in its great detail and just amazing. Congratulations, Em. Well, this information item, no action is needed at this time, so we thank you, Ms. Hickey and Dr. Kearney. Are we ready for item 12, Erin?
Yeah, let me just have her log in. She is on hold.
Okay, great. So we'll go back to item 12. So rather than taking a formal break, we'll just stand by and wait till we get the okay.